Thank you, Chairwoman Kelly, and thank you, Chairman Raskin, as well. Glad you look great, so I'm glad to see you're doing okay. I thank the Chairwoman for holding today's hearing on such an important issue. In my hometown of Goose Creek, South Carolina, just over 2 years ago, in September, I believe, of 19, there was a huge human trafficking and sex trafficking bust. These kinds of issues are happening all over our country, unbeknownst to many people today, and the thousands of innocent victims. All Americans, especially women and girls, deserve to realize their full potential in this country and achieve the American dream. But far too often, violent criminal activities and sex trafficking serve to limit opportunities and extinguish their livelihood. A shockingly high number of women and girls will be the victim of tragedies of child abuse, domestic violence, sexual assault, or human trafficking during their lifetime. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, intimate partner violence has affected or will affect 1 in 4 women in the U.S., and half of all female homicide victims in the U.S. are killed by a current or former male intimate partner. In my home state of South Carolina, there were almost 60 homicides in 2021 alone related to domestic violence. According to the South Carolina Coalition Against Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault, the rate in South Carolina is over twice the national average for femicide. The 1 in 4 number I mentioned previously is only for the general population. In fact, there are even a higher proportion of survivors of domestic violence among women of color, with 35% of Native American women estimated to be victimized by rape, physical assault, stalking, or by an intimate partner in their lifetime. In New York City alone, despite only making up 20% of the population, Black women or 45% of domestic violence related to homicide victims. Women and girls are also frequently targeted by human traffickers, especially by sex traffickers who prey on the most vulnerable. These tragedies are particularly acute among women of color. For example, despite only making up 8% of the population in South Dakota, Native American women are 40% of sex trafficking victims in the state. In Louisiana, almost half of sex trafficking survivors are Black women and girls, even though they make up only 19% of Louisiana's youth population. Nationwide, Black women and girls are estimated to be about 40% of domestic sex trafficking victims in the U.S. And it's estimated that there are currently between 64,000 and 75,000 missing Black women and girls in the United States, many of whom have been targeted by sex traffickers. These crimes subject victims and their communities at great cost. The CDC estimates the total economic impact of domestic violence to be somewhere north of $3.5 trillion, which includes medical services for injuries, lost productivity from work, criminal justice costs, and tragically, the personal cost for every victim of domestic violence is greater than $100,000 over this woman's lifetime on average. This is an important hearing. I look forward to learning from the witnesses today about their own experiences with these tragedies and what they and their organizations are doing to raise awareness of these issues, to reduce the vulnerable from being targeted, and to ensure that survivors can live the best life possible in our country. I'm especially interested in what policies we should be advocating for to improve access to education and economic opportunities for all women to decrease their vulnerability and risk for being targeted by criminals. All of us deserve to live in a society free from the fear of falling victim to violent crimes, and I hope this hearing will illustrate how important this issue is today, because so many Americans are not informed, don't have the data, the information, and would never believe this is happening in our country today. So I want to thank the chairwoman. I do want to, Madam Chair, ask for unanimous consent to enter a statement into the record from Tara Sweeney, who is the former Assistant Secretary for Indian Affairs at the U.S. Department of Interior.